What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. This is Cherish Today, Season 2, Episode 1. Now, if you're not familiar with Cherish Today are these love stories, right? It's, I guess 10 episodes. Last season, so these are two totally different couple from last season. It's not a continuation. And it's scripted to be that way, that each season is a different love story, right? So this season, we are following the story of Ellis and Sunday. So we start this episode off. We see Sunday and Ellis starting their day, doing their thing. So we find out that Sunday is a chef in Atlanta and she has her own restaurant. We found out that Ellis is a family man. He's got 2 daughters, and I could tell that those were the mother of the children, but I could tell that they weren't together. But they seem to have a good relationship, a good co-parenting relationship. We see him with his daughters in the morning getting ready for breakfast. He done cooked them some nice pancakes. He's got 2 girls. He's talking to the oldest daughter, going over her homework, and she also plays sports. You can hear him talking to her about her jump shot. Terry J. Vaughn plays his wife. We find out later it's his soon-to-be ex-wife. And she comes through there, and again, like I said, you can tell they have a friendly relationship. They're not at each other's throats, and that they definitely have this morning routine thing going with the co-parenting situation. Now, on the other hand, we see Sunday with her chefs at the restaurant. She seems really nurturing, but I ain't gonna say strict. Nurturing, but concise. Like, she wants things done a certain way, but she's turning the restaurant over to her, her executive chef or what have you, because she's going back home, which is New Orleans, to check on her dad. Her dad is played by Richard Roundtree. He's a judge. They keep calling him judge, so I'm going to assume he was a judge. Until they tell me different, child. He was a judge. She's going home to move him back to Atlanta with her because she's worried about him. He's older. She's worried that maybe, she hasn't said it out loud, but I think she's definitely worried that he may have Alzheimer's or something else along those lines, because she's really concerned about him remembering things and stuff like that. So that's the premise of this whole situation, right? So we see her going back home, and we see her with her dad, and her dad is cantankerous and ornery, but ultimately he doesn't want to leave. Like, I know a lot of older people, they don't want to leave their home. Like, that is their home, that is where they're comfortable, and something happens when we take parents out of their home. And it happened with my grandmother. Now, my grandmother's house had, steps on top. She lived on a hill. And it would just steps. Even if she parked in the back of her house, it was steps going down. Like, there was no way to get to her house without going up a bunch of steps. And at a certain point, my grandmother was in her 90s when she passed away. And we were like, Grandma, you can't, like, you can't. Like, you can't. First of all, you live by yourself, and you just can't keep walking up these steps all the time. And when we put her in a retirement community, and it was nice, and she had a nice apartment and food and activities and stuff, but it was never the same for her. It was just something about leaving her house. And so I feel like that's what Richard Roundtree is going through. Not only are you talking about moving him out of his house, but you're moving him to a whole nother state. Like, you're going from New Orleans to Atlanta, from, Louisiana to Georgia. And he's just not really here for it. And the toilet in the bathroom is busted, and he ran the plumber off, probably on purpose to prolong the process, because she's trying to sell the house or rent it out, and to prolong the process of her being able to get the house in condition for her to sell it or rent it or whatever it is that she's trying to do. So she goes down to the hardware store to get the parts she needs to try to fix the toilet, because she is a student of YouTube University, and she says, listen, I can figure it out on YouTube. I can figure out how to fix it. So she goes down to the hardware store to get the parts that she needs. And Ellis is in there, and he hears her voice. Like, he can hear her laugh from the other side of the store, and he immediately knows that it's her. Like, his face tells you he knows it's her. So, they see each other, and they hug, and the salesperson is like one of those, like, mom and pop, like, shops. She's not like a Home Depot or nothing. And he's like, you believe this woman think that she, and he said, like, little lady or whatever, you believe that she thinks she gonna be able to fix the plumbing, just by watching a video online. And she was like, well, you'd be surprised what we can do, with videos. We surprised these days. And she was like, well, it's good to see you. How are you doing? He was like, I'm fine. She was like, so they were like, well, what have you been up to? And she said, well, I'm a chef in Atlanta. I have a restaurant. He was like, oh wow. She said, well, what about you? He was like, well, I'm a plumber and I have my own business. And you can see a little glint of like disappointment in her eyes, like, oh, a plumber. But I didn't take it as her being like looking down on him, but just surprised. And we found out later on why she's surprised, but we'll get to that, child. So then, she leaves. They do their little, good to see you, good to see you too kind of thing. So she's back at the house trying to figure out how to fix this pipe. And of course, she can't fix it. But she was talking to her, I think it's her cousin who watches her dad for her. And we find out that was her childhood sweetheart. And there is history there. And she was like, so when you saw him, did you punch him? Like, did you punch him in the face? And she was like, no, I didn't, he's married with kids. Like, he's fine. He ain't thinking about me. And she was like, you a better one than me because I'd have punched him, and but she ends up calling him to come and fix the plumbing, which of course we knew that was what was going to happen. The minute we found out the man was a plumber, we knew he was going to have to fix whatever she screwed up. So he comes over and he fixed the plumbing or whatever. And she's like, well, what do I owe you? And he was like, cool now, like, you don't owe me nothing. He was like, I'm good. She was like, okay, well, let me pay you back in snowballs. And he was like, well, I can't turn that down. So they go and have a snowball. They walk down, they go have a little snowball or whatever. And they get to talking, and somebody walks up on them. This guy, I believe his name was Famous. He plays the drums and stuff. They all knew each other in high school. And you could tell that he's kind of got a habit. He's had a hard life. His clothes are kind of bummy or whatever. Hair not quite there. And but he lets us know a little bit more about their story. Come to find out they were high school sweethearts. King and queen of homecoming. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see y'all back together. It's so great to see y'all together. Like, y'all were the real king and queen. Y'all were the original. And you could. And you see Ellis give him some money and stuff. You could tell that this is kind of what they do kind of thing. So from there, they end up going to a coffee shop to talk, a bar or whatever, to talk. And we find out a little bit more about what was going on. And he apologized to her. He said, ever since I ran into you earlier, I've been wanting to say this. He was like, I'm sorry. And we find out that he cheated on her. He cheated on her. They were together for 3 years. And she said, well, the way women was throwing stuff at you and you had such a big head, like, I just feel like it was inevitable that you was going to give in to temptation at some point. And so we find out that he, again, he cheated on her or whatever. So after he apologizes, they go to the bar or the restaurant or whatever, and they talk a little bit more. And she asked him, she said, he said, I came to see you in college. I came to visit you at Clark. And she was like, I know. He was like, well, your roommate told me you went, or the girl answered told me that you changed your mind and you went to Howard. And she was like, I saw you. She was like, that's what I told her to say because I didn't think, she said it felt good. My whole life I was Ellis's girl. And it got to the point where I identified as just being Ellis's girl. And it felt good to be somewhere. She said at Clark, I was me. I was Sunday. I wasn't anybody's girl. And I didn't think that I was strong enough that if you said the right things and you made me feel a certain kind of way, I didn't think I was strong enough to keep my independence and still be me and not become Ellis's girl again. And he was like, okay, I got it. So we find out that he was the star basketball player, right? He went to college. He was a top prospect. And then, of course, y'all know the story. He got hurt, never quite recovered. So he didn't go to the NBA, but he did go and play overseas. But while he was overseas, he was homesick and his heart just wasn't in it. And he became addicted to the pain pills for his injuries. Comes back home And basically he's strung out. Like he's basically just a dope head, getting high. He finds his wife, they fall in love, and she's the one that basically helps him get clean. He said, but we're not together anymore. And so Sunday's like, oh really? He was like, yeah, and so he ends up telling her what happened. And what ended up happening was she ended up cheating on him. She wanted to become a singer, and so he said, you were there for me, you supported me, you got me through my addiction, and so I'm gonna be here for you. I got you. I'm gonna be here for you. And so she went off and went on the road and did like a little mini tour and fell in love with her road manager. And so Sunday was like, oh, so she cheated on you? He was like, yep, karma came and bit me in the ass. So they go from one. This is one of those dates that turned into. They went from one place to another. They went from the club to the bar to listening to some live music outside. They had a really good time. Definitely reconnected. Definitely, were feeling each other. Like you definitely could see that they dropped a lot of their guard a little bit, and they were really feeling each other. They get back to the house, and she realizes that her dad's car is missing. So she was like, well, where's my father's car? Like, he doesn't drive anymore. What happened? So they go in the house. He's not home. So she calls her cousin, and it sounds like from the way her cousin was responding that this might not be the first time that he's done this. So they drive around, and he was like, listen, I'm going to help you find your dad. Even if it takes us all night, we're just going to drive until we find him, So they end up finding him. He's sitting on like a stoop of like a store or whatever. He's dressed in nice suit, and he's got flowers, and he's angry. And he's angry because of a lot of reasons, right? But he explains that, since Sunday is getting ready to take him away and take him to Atlanta, he wanted to go say goodbye to his wife one last time. He said, and I know she probably wasn't going to take me to go see her, so I went to go see her myself. He said, but I got a little turned around. So now he's frustrated. He's angry already at the situation. But he's frustrated because he's gotten lost. This is the city he's born and raised in. He knows it like the back of his hand, but he can't find the cemetery. So again, I do think that we're seeing some things that might lead us to think that maybe there's some Alzheimer's there or something going on there. And he was really nasty to Sunday. He snapped at her, and he was really nasty to her. So Ellis sits down to talk to him, and he says, Judge, he said, earlier today we were talking about people coming to your life at the right time for a reason. And he said, I ran into you when I was at my lowest, probably one of the worst days of my life. I was standing out front of the store, hanging out with a bunch of dudes, doing what I was doing, but clearly, this is when he was in his addiction. He said, and you kind of waved at me, and you went into the store. He said, and when you came out the store, you had a sandwich, you had some water, and you were like, hey, come take a ride with me. I got in the car. And you told me to take a good look at myself in the mirror. And I opened up to you, and I told you that I was about to be a father and what was going on. And you told me, well, now listen, you have somebody else that you're living for now, not just for yourself. So you got to kind of, get it together, and whatever I can do to help, I'll help. But you got to get it together. You're a good man, and I know you're a good man. He said, and now I have 2 girls that I hope will look at me the way Sunday looks at you, and think and love me the way Sunday loves you. He said, man, I've always wanted to drive that Jag. Can I give you a ride home? Can I take you home? And so he lets him take him home, and she's there. And they get him situated in the house, and they're talking outside, and she's like, he's never talked to me like that before. Like, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, when were you planning on moving him to Atlanta? And she was like, I don't know anymore, because this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Like, this isn't turning out to be as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I really don't know. And he said, well, listen, whatever you need, however I can help, you let me know. And you can tell, like, again, you can see the chemistry there. They kind of walking off. They give each other a hug, but they right there. Their faces is right there. I thought they were getting ready to kiss, but they ain't kiss. But they was right there. It was right there. It was boop, boop, boop. And that's pretty much where the episode ended. I'm liking it so far. I feel like they're not going to slow walk this. But I definitely know that it's gonna get. Yeah, I mean, there's 10 episodes, so it's gonna be a lot more to it, and it's gonna go low before it go high. So we're gonna see where this takes us, y'all. And y'all let me know what y'all think. Put it in the comments. Peace.